Have you ever walked away from a conversation with a parent feeling empty or maybe confused? You might have shared good news only to have them immediately turn the conversation back to themselves. Or perhaps you sought comfort and instead you got a lecture or a dismissive, "You're too sensitive." You love them, you know they love you on some level, but there's a gap. A feeling of profound loneliness, even when you're together. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. You might be the adult child of an emotionally immature parent. In her groundbreaking book, psychologist Lindsay Gibson pulls back the curtain on a dynamic that millions experience but can't quite name. She explains that this persistent feeling of emotional neglect doesn't stem from a lack of love, but from a lack of emotional maturity in a parent. These aren't bad people. They might have provided a home, food, and education. But when it comes to the deep, resonant emotional connection that makes a child feel truly seen and safe, they just don't have the tools. So what does an emotionally immature parent actually look like? Gibson identifies 4 main types, and as I describe them, you might recognize one or even a combination of these traits in your own life. First, there's the emotional parent. These parents' feelings dominate the family atmosphere through a process called emotional contagion. If they're anxious, everyone must be anxious. If they're upset, it's the child's job to soothe them. They're unstable and often enmeshed with their children, blurring the lines between parent and child, treating them more like a therapist or a spouse. The child learns early on that their feelings don't matter as much as their parents'. Next, there's the driven parent. This is the ambitious, perfectionist parent who seems to have it all together. They push their children to succeed, not for the child's own fulfillment, but because the child's accomplishments are a reflection on them. Love and approval are conditional, tied directly to performance. They'll give you the praise for the diploma, but never the hug for the struggle. The third type is the passive parent, and this is where we can see how these roles often work together. This parent avoids conflict at all costs. While they might be sweet and agreeable, they offer no real protection, often standing by while a more difficult spouse, like a driven or emotional one, causes harm. To the child, this silence is a form of abandonment. To understand why they do this, it helps to look at it through the lens of family systems theory. This theory views a family as an interconnected mobile. If one piece is pushed, the whole thing wobbles to find a new balance. In a dysfunctional family, that balance is simply the absence of open conflict. The passive parent's role is to be the peacemaker. By staying quiet, they absorb the tension to prevent a bigger fight. Their inaction is an unconscious strategy to keep the system running, but the child's emotional safety is the price paid for that fragile peace. And finally, there's the rejecting parent. This is the most straightforward and perhaps the most painful type. These parents are walled off. They seem irritated by the very needs of their children. They want to be left alone, and they treat family life as a series of obligations and interruptions. Children of rejecting parents learn to expect nothing. They become incredibly self-sufficient because they have no other choice. Living with any of these parents forces a child to adapt in order to survive emotionally. Gibson explains that they develop what she calls a role self. Think of this as a mask or a character the child learns to play. It's an unconscious strategy designed to answer one crucial question. Who do I need to be to get noticed, stay safe, or feel loved in this family? They might become the high achiever, the caretaker, or the family clown. The problem is this role self pushes down and buries their true self. The true self is our core. It's where our spontaneous feelings, genuine interests, and real needs come from. When the true self is silenced throughout childhood, a person can grow into an adult who feels fundamentally disconnected from what they truly want, leading to that persistent feeling of emptiness we talked about earlier. A powerful example of a role self is what Gibson calls contemplatory cheerfulness. This is more than just being optimistic. It's a relentless, almost strategic pleasantness. These children learned early on that their real messy feelings like sadness or anger are unwelcome or too much for the parent to handle. So they become the easy child, the one who's always helpful and never complains. They make a subconscious bet. If I demand nothing and bring only sunshine, maybe then I'll finally earn the warmth and connection I crave. This creates a deep conflict in adulthood. Gibson explains that adult children tend to react in one of two ways, as internalizers or externalizers. Externalizers blame everyone else for their problems, act out, and rarely self-reflect. They expect the world to adapt to them. But this book focuses on the internalizers. These are the adult children who believe deep down that the emotional gap is their fault. They think, I had a roof over my head, so what right do I have to complain? They carry a healing fantasy, the subconscious hope that if they could just be good enough, say the right thing, or achieve the right goal, their parent would finally change and give them the love they crave. And this is a crucial point. The goal of this book is not to turn internalizers into externalizers who just blame their parents. That's trading one prison for another. The goal is to move beyond blame altogether and into a space of mature self-reflection and empowerment. The first step is letting go of that healing fantasy. This isn't about giving up on your parents in anger. It's about accepting reality with wisdom so you can take responsibility for your own happiness. Your parents are unlikely to fundamentally change. The healing has to come from you. So how do you do that? The path forward doesn't involve dramatic confrontations. It begins with a shift in your own perspective. Gibson recommends practicing detached observation. This means you interact while observing their behavior, almost like a scientist. When your mother makes your job loss about her anxiety, you don't get sucked in. Instead, a voice in your head notes, there it is, her emotional immaturity. This isn't about me. This isn't a cold or cynical act. It's an act of mental self-protection. It creates space so the wound doesn't get deeper. Next, you change your goal for the relationship. You stop going to the hardware store for bread. You stop seeking deep emotional nourishment from people who can't provide it. Instead, you manage the interactions. You focus on topics they can handle, logistics, facts, activities, and keep it contained. This isn't fake. It's a realistic and mature strategy to protect your own heart. It's acknowledging their limits, not punishing them. But detaching is just what clears the way for the most important part. Finding fulfilling emotional connections elsewhere. The void your parents left cannot be filled by them. Your healing will come from building a chosen family, from nurturing deep, reciprocal relationships with friends, a partner, or a therapist. These are the relationships that will finally satisfy that lifelong hunger to be seen and valued. This is where you will finally get to know and express your true self. The ultimate takeaway is one of profound empowerment. It tells you that the emptiness you felt is not a flaw in you, but a wound from your past. It gives you the tools to understand the dynamic, not to feel resentment, but to architect your own healing. It frees you from the exhausting work of trying to win a game that was rigged from the start. So the next time you feel that familiar pang of disappointment, take a deep breath. Instead of getting caught in the old loop of asking, what did I do wrong, or why can't they be different? Ask a new, more powerful question. Knowing who they are And with compassion for the limitations they have, what is the most mature and self-respecting way I can take care of myself right now? And who in my life can I connect with who truly sees and values me? The power to heal that loneliness doesn't lie with your parents anymore. It lies with you.